Jason Gray, and I'm sitting down today with Chris Prager from the Campbell County Fire Department. And it's getting warmer, and people are going to start barbecuing. And I think that's what we were going to talk about this month.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. And yeah, so the big thing that we're talking about now is with these weather shifts, warm, cold, going back into the warm spring season, people want to get out, grill, and really enjoy the weather as we get it. Totally agree with it. The biggest thing we want to talk about is just some statistics with grilling, some fires, potential fires, and then how to kind of mitigate those issues potentially. So on average, there are about 10,500 fires each year caused by grilling per the National Fire Protection Agency. It leads to about 20,000 injuries every single year where someone goes to the ER. And statistically, about 65% of homes have a grill, a barbecue, a smoker, an electric smoker, something that they can use to cook food outdoors. Especially with like those black stones, those flat top griddles and things becoming more prevalent and a little easier to get to. So the biggest things that we're running into is just following your manufacturer specifications as far as when you set up your grill and you're not sure exactly where to place it or how to place it. And a lot of people place it on their decks, which have wooden railings. The big thing is making sure that you're maintaining that distance that's brought up by the manufacturer. So if when you're reading over everything, it says 3 feet from combustible materials, that's anything that can burn, you want to space it 3 feet the entire time you have it going and cooling down. The closer you get it to the wood, the higher potential there is for a fire. Same thing goes for like a 3-foot zone around your grill for pets, kids, things like that. So if you are grilling on a deck, make sure you're maintaining those zones realistically. Try not to really put it in close proximity of someone who doesn't really understand, like a young child or a dog who doesn't really understand what it is. They know it's a little hot and they might run into it if they're so used to following that same path into your back door. Those can cause things to tip over, charcoal to break out, or embers to fall out onto a wooden deck. Then you have a fire on the back of your house or something of that nature. So we just really want people to be kind of cognizant of those things and really paying attention to where we're doing it, especially with getting this warm, cold, everything is dry. We're having grass fires, we're having, fires near homes, and just reminding people that if something happens on your property and spreads to another property, the liability could be on you. That's the unfortunate circumstance. The other thing is really talking about if you do use charcoal, let it cool completely before you do anything. So when you are using just like the black Weber grills with charcoal in them and everything falls down, close everything up, close all of the airflow, and let it sit for a couple hours to cool to make sure those embers and everything are fully out, and then put them into, like a metal container for disposal. So that way you're not opening that up to being taken by the wind or something like that. Because we see some things like that where embers can go, depending on the wind, hundreds of feet to half a mile sometimes, especially when we get wildland fires. Now, it's really not going to happen so much probably in the city, but we've seen it on wildland fires where an ember can get carried almost half a mile to a quarter mile to half a mile and then start a spot fire somewhere. So really go for that, and then leaning into like propane grills. Just the safety of your propane, make sure your connections are right, your hoses are in proper condition, it's not leaking. When you start your grill, those automatic starters, make sure your grill top is open. You don't want propane to be leaking into your grill, because if it becomes too rich, it won't ignite. And then when you open the grill to take a look and you press that ignition source and you're allowing oxygen to come in, you get a nice whoosh of fire and heat. Generally, that's how you can singe eyebrows, burn your face. And that's how you generally want to avoid something like that happening. And then leading into after you use your grill, clean it. Or clean it before the next time you use it. Just make sure you get that grease out of there. Grease fire is really hard to put out sometimes. You can't just always smother it, because if it's hot, it's to that temperature that's allowing it to ignite, it just boils. And covering it very quickly and then opening back up just introduces more oxygen, and it can reignite. So then you have these large grease fires in a grill that's enclosed. When you open it, you get oxygen and you get that fire again. So all about just maintaining and paying attention to what you're doing. So you want to make sure that you have, an adult or someone who has the mental capacity to deal with it. Try not to be under the influence of anything when doing things like this, because a burn is a burn and it can only lead to further problems in reality.
Sure.
The last thing that we really talk about is keep some way of extinguishing the fire when you're grilling, whether it be a fire extinguisher, a garden hose, a pitcher of water, something that can handle what you're doing. So if you're using a smoker or a charcoal grill, maybe having an extinguisher nearby. So if something does go wrong, you can just grab it and use it. Or maybe even a garden hose.
If you did have a grease fire, though, you wouldn't want to use the garden hose.
No, correct. That's the big thing is if you have a large grease fire, you don't want to do that. So an extinguisher would work well for that.
Yeah.
But again, that goes back to if you're cleaning every time and you have a small amount of grease, it's more of just a fire with the burning portions rather than a full grease fire.
Okay.
So you can have like a vat of grease that's on fire, which that's where it comes down to when you spray grease with water, it superheats the water and it causes everything to basically just vaporize, and then you get that large whoosh. So that's where a lot of that comes from. And so yeah, an extinguisher would be great to avoid something like that happening, depending on how your grill is set up. But if you're looking at like you're using embers or anything like that,
oh sure,
you know, having your hose nearby would be a great source for that.
Okay.
Outside of that, we just want everyone to be safe and really enjoy the weather. So as long as some of this gets through, and if anybody has any questions or concerns, they're free to call down to the fire station and ask anytime. It's free education. We want to help anywhere we can and try and prevent anything from becoming a larger problem.
All right. Yeah, definitely. Always be very careful when you're grilling or barbecuing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Is there anything else for May?
Nope, that's it that I can think of.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you for having me.